Hi, welcome to Math 87, Lesson 125. In this lesson, we're going to talk about multiplying three or more signed numbers and powers of negative numbers. Now, one way to multiply three or more signed numbers is to multiply the factors in order from left to right, keeping track of the signs with each step. We're going to do that now. So we have -3 times -4. When we recall, a negative times a negative is a positive. So we would have positive 12 times positive 5 times -2 times positive 3. Then we go on to the next step. Positive 12 times positive 5 is positive 60. So there we have positive 60 times -2 times positive 3. We'll just go on. Positive 60 times -2 is -120. So now we have -120 times positive 3. And a negative times a positive is a negative, so we end up with -360. Now there is another way to keep track of the signs when multiplying signed numbers, and that's to count the number of negative factors. I have a pattern set up here for you, and if you'll notice, -1 equals -1. -1 times -1 equals +1. -1 times -1 times -1 equals -1. -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 equals a +1. And then we have -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 equals -1. Sorry. And you'll notice there's a pattern. The odd negative factors equal a negative number. Even negative factors equal a positive number. So we need to keep that in mind, that if there is an odd number of negative factors, the answer will be negative. If there's an even number of negative factors, the answer will be positive. So if we look at this problem, or this equation, and we say find the product, we look at that there are 3 negative factors. So the first thing we know is the product is going to be a negative. Something that doesn't look very good. Now we can just go ahead now and multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 12. 12 times 5 is 60. 60 times 2 is 120. 120 times 3 is 360. So we have -360. Now, when we see -3 to the 4th, we know that means -3 times -3 times -3 times -3. Keeping that in mind, let's simplify -2 to the 4th and -2 to the 5th. Now, looking at -2 to the 4th, we know that means -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. Now, that is an even number of negatives. Factors. So we know the answer is going to be a positive. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. So the answer to -2 to the 4th would be positive 16. Now let's look at -2 to the 5th. We know that means -2 multiplied by itself 5 times. And we know, since that is an odd number, the answer is going to be negative. And again, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So we know the answer is going to be -32. So really, if you can remember that trick, going back to this, if you can remember this trick, multiplying by signed numbers is pretty simple. You just remember that if there's an odd number of negative factors, the answer will be negative. If there is an even number of negative factors, the answer will be positive. There are some practice problems for this lesson. Go ahead and practice those, and I will put the answers in Canvas.